Obviously, the role is to provide comprehensible input because it's critical to make the second language real and personable. And I would say Clil is the absolute best way to engage students, and as a result, you're able to establish the highest academic expectations. Or make the second language an integral part of what you're teaching in science, in history, geography, any of your content area classes. And it brings together so many other theories, practices, methodologies into something that's very concrete. And you have the 4Cs framework. So you have content, communication, cognition, and culture. And it's a synergy of integrated learning. And I'm a huge fan. That's what I would say about that. Ideally, this is the goal, is that we incorporate multisensory opportunities, visual, tactile, auditory, kinesthetic. And this is one of the things that I always tell teachers when I have the opportunity to talk to them. I tell them, think about each lesson. Every single time you're going to teach something, think about how you can bring something physical, something that students can touch or see or use in the classroom. I'd say the biggest benefit, I obviously motivation. Students, when they know that this is something that applies to them, that it's personal to them, that it's something that will help with their development, they are highly motivated, or at least much more motivated than they would be with other methods. And the other thing that I would say is that fluency. There's not, this is a method that paves the way for students to become really, really fluent. And I would say the cultural part is critical, because if students don't see that there's an application or a connection with the world around them, they usually turn off. Again, it's back to motivation. So you'll have to think about the necessity of making the information that you're giving to them accessible and understandable. The last thing you want is for your students just to close off. Because even, you're talking about, for example, whatever the subject is you're talking about music, or you're talking about something, but you're talking in another language, and maybe this student today is just really tired, or has some issues at home, or whatever it is. It's really easy, even in the perfect situation, just hearing this other sound, this other language, just to shut down. So you want to open that up. You want the student to stay engaged, so you're going to slow your speech, you're going to give clear enunciation with controlled vocabulary. Those three things. Slow the speech, clear enunciation, and controlled vocabulary. Is that students in the hallway, or when they first come in, or when the teacher first comes into the classroom, the students will say, oh, and they'll be speaking to the teacher, Profesora Marsell, es que no tuve tiempo porque esto me pasó, and they're telling all this in Spanish here, because we're in Spain. They're in their native language. They're just saying whatever the situation is, or es que me molesta mucho este otro chico, whatever it is that they're saying, right? That they're communicating with the teachers. This kind of information is necessary, and it's part of the bond that the teacher and the student has. But notice that it's always it's in their first language, and this is a perfect opportunity for Clil teachers to change that up. And because what I have seen and observed is that the teacher will answer the student back in Spanish, in the native language, instead of using the second language. And this is the perfect opportunity to use the second language. Answer back, always answering back in in English in this case, okay? And I tell you again in English what he or she's just said. Profe, ¿puedo ir al baño? Can you tell me that in English, please? Okay, so you expect that. That's your expectation, that you're going to hear it in English. And then if the student is, really incapable or something, you can say, that's a good question, because sometimes it is a harder thing with more difficult vocabulary. So you can answer then in English, that's a good question, and then you rephrase the question in English with the answer in English. Be sure to check for understanding, comprehensible input by asking the student to repeat back to you in English what you said. And in this way, English conversation will become a normal part of your classroom culture. Personally, I like to give more, I like to do frequent assessments. I like to, maybe it's maybe every week. I can say, hand me, go ahead and put everything away, and I give them a pop quiz or do this kind of thing, and then right in the moment we correct it in class so that I'm not giving myself more work. And letting students know that you have to make, I tell my students regularly, you have to make mistakes. You have to make a mistake so that you can each time get better. And if you're afraid of making mistakes, you're stuck. So we all need to make mistakes so that we can continue to improve. And that doesn't set well with a lot of people, but it's really important for anything we do with the second language. It's necessary.